We're going to go to John Fakler with story number 3. John, this story is coming out of Miami today. It's a piece where I'm going to read you the headline. I'll read you the first couple graphs, and then I'm going to ask you to comment on it. Headline: Miami fines Mogul for renting out his mansion for parties. First couple graphs: Miami is slapping a red light camera mogul, guy named John Pedrosa, with a 6-figure fine after he racked up numerous violations for illegally renting out his Belmead Island waterfront estate for pandemic-era parties. The Miami City Commission unanimously voted last week to charge Mr. Pedrosa nearly $230,000 for short-term rental violations at his 8,000 square foot mansion that overlooks Biscayne Bay. Commissioners were not willing to negotiate the price, as the attorney representing Mr. Pedrosa asked and said he would serve as an example to deter future bad actors. Now, Mr. Fakler, before you answer that question, let me just sort of throw out there that this request for a reduction in a fine, this is something that was put out and made available by the city attorney of Miami's husband, who was buying some properties. Now, a little bit different circumstance. He was buying properties that were in a guardianship program. They had all kinds of fines against them. He then went to the city of Miami, asked them to reduce, if not eliminate the fines, and they should share no problem. So just sort of keep that in mind, Mr. Fakler, as you're answering this question. Is a $230,000 fine adequate? And is this an apples and apples comparison where some fines are waived and other fines are not?
Well, just a little background here. There's a reason why they're holding firm on getting this amount of money.
The city of Miami.
Yes, because this is a repeat offender. There were first 2 violations. There was no fine, but then there was a third violation, and they just decided, okay, we're going to hammer this down. We're going to make an example of them. I think there might have been a slight reduction from 250 to 230 something thousand for some reason. But Commissioner Joe Carollo is actually quoted in the story as saying that they wanted to make an example of them, so this does not happen in the future. Now, this particular zoning is strictly for long-term rentals. You can't do a short-term rental there. So AirBNB, other similar companies cannot operate there. Now, this guy was renting, Pedrosa, I believe the guy's name was renting on Airbnb for $3,500 a night. I mean, and the background story is the neighbors were up in arms because the guy, I mean, there was drag racing in the neighborhood. They were renting out video shoots for commercials. They had buses. I'm sorry, I had to write this down. There was so much stuff here. Buses stopping and dropping people off for the weekend. And then, of course, there was a Bengal tiger at one of these. Interestingly enough, yeah, we've heard about the Russians doing that with the tigers, but there was a Bengal tiger, and believe it or not, the Florida Wildlife Commission said they were legal because they had a license for an exhibition. So, of all the things, that was actually legal to have a Bengal tiger there. So, you've got all this going on. I couldn't help but to look into this guy Pedrosa a little bit. I put my investigative journalism hat on. The guy goes back. There was a New York Post story from 2015. The guy, as we mentioned, he was an entrepreneur, came up with this red light cameras. The big contract he got was in New York City, $120 million. He had another contract pending for Long Island. But apparently this whole concept did not go over well with the Manhattanites. So he got a lot of pushback. There was a lot of investigations. Apparently the guy has multiple moving violations at the time, 2015. He's got a red light camera thing, was supposed to keep everybody in check. He's got he's got tax issues according to the Post. Again, don't know if they were resolved. He had moving violations. He had some sort of a big fight with his stepson over the mother's inheritance. So the guy's got, this laundry list of issues. I'm not saying they haven't been resolved. This is 2015. But the best part of the story was, he had a Facebook page that was devoted strictly to his party in the Hamptons. Had a red Lamborghini. Apparently, in this Facebook posting, he had scantily clad women, according to the Post, dancing around a stripper pole. I'm just saying, this is a little bit of background about the guy. He's got a little bit of a history. So I just wanted to mention that. So, we'll see how this plays out, because that is still pending as far as the fine, the 200,000 plus fine.
Is it fair to pay the entire fine when other people, same type of idea, asking for a reduction or elimination of a fine, while other people are getting waivers?
Well, let's keep in mind how much he was getting a night. So if there's some sort of a sliding scale about how much they can be fined, and maybe they're looking at the certain amount of rentals they had over a certain period of time, and basing that scale on
Interesting.
how much they were renting property. So that's
Interesting.
Maybe that's the way to go in the future. I mean, one thing for sure. I mean, Joe Carollo is, he's really battening down this whole issue, which has been an issue in the past. I mean, we've talked. They've had other issues, I believe, in Miami, right, Peter, as far as Airbnb, and not being in certain neighborhoods and being allowed in others. But we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, interesting. And I will say Miami Beach has been the one that's been proactive, much more proactive than the city of Miami. So this is kind of unique.